bhavatu sahano bhunaktu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvina vaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, 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 peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good evening, everyone. Namaste, and so glad you're with us. As you know, we're studying chapter 4 of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. And he's been getting rather starchy, you might say. So we'll review just a little bit. We'll go back just a little bit. Stretch your ideas as far as you can. Make them higher and higher. Call them infinite or by any other name you please. Even these ideas are within this Maya. It cannot be otherwise. And the whole of human knowledge is a generalization of this Maya, trying to know it as it appears to be. This is the work of Namarupa, name and form. Everything that has form, everything that calls up an idea in your mind, is within Maya. For everything that is bound by the laws of time, space, and causation, everything that is bound by the laws of time, space, and causation is within Maya. So let's just grasp that. Nothing we can know by our sensory or even supersensuous way of being, as long as it is an experience, that is to say, there is the experiencer, that which is being experienced, and the experiencing, everything is then within Maya, without exception. Let us go back a little to those early ideas of God and see what became of them. We perceive at once that the idea of some being who is eternally loving us, eternally unselfish and almighty, ruling this universe, could not satisfy. Where is the just, merciful God? Asked the philosopher. Does he not see millions and millions of his children perish in the form of men and animals, men and women and animals? For who can live 1 minute here without killing others? Can you draw a breath without destroying thousands of lives? This is just a biological fact. We kill things as we breathe. We kill things in our intestines constantly that would otherwise be harmful to us. When they get out of hand, we get sick. Can you draw a breath without destroying thousands of lives? You live because millions die. Every moment of your life, every breath that you breathe, is death to thousands. Every movement that you make is death to millions. Every morsel that you eat is death to millions. Why should they die? There is an old sophism that they are very low existences. Supposing they are, which is questionable, for who knows whether the ant is greater than the man or the man than the ant? Who can prove one way or the other? Apart from that question, even taking it for granted that these are very low beings, still, why should they die? If they are low, they have more reason to live. Why more? Because they live more in the senses. They feel pleasure and pain, a thousandfold more than you or I can do. Which of us eats a dinner with the same gusto as a dog or a wolf? None, because your energies are not in the senses. They are in the intellect, in the spirit. Now, here is Swamiji making, just in passing, a rather remarkable statement. Even if you devote yourself to the sensual realm, you're not going to enjoy it that much because in your nature, your energies are not in the senses. They are in the intellect, in the spirit. But in animals, their whole soul is in the senses, and they become mad and enjoy things which we human beings never dream of. And the pain is commensurate with the pleasure. Pleasure and pain are meted out in equal measure. If the pleasure felt by animals is so much keener than that felt by man, it follows that the animal's sense of pain is as keen, if not keener than man's. So the fact is, the pain and misery men feel in dying is intensified a thousandfold in animals, and yet we kill them without troubling ourselves about their misery. This is Maya. And if we suppose there is a personal God, like a human being, who made everything, these so-called explanations and theories, which try to prove that out of evil comes good, are not sufficient. Let 20,000 good things come, but why should they come from evil? On that principle, I might cut the throats of others because I want the full pleasure of my five senses. That is no reason. Why should good come from evil? The question remains to be answered and cannot be answered. The philosophy of India was compelled to admit this. Now, the Swami is about to go on and explain Vedanta. Before we go ahead with that, are there any comments or questions that anyone would like to make about what's been said so far? Startling stuff.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Swayam.
I will start off with the questions. When it comes to the experiencer, is it the awareness or the reflected consciousness, the mind stuff and the body together that form the experience? And then where does that leave the witness?
The witness sees what the gunas are doing in its presence. What you just described is the gunas in action, doing this, that, and the other thing. The witness is simply aware, experiences our feelings, thoughts, emotions, actions, and as Krishna says in the Gita, thereby sanctions them. Is that a sufficient explanation? If not, please ask.
Yes, Brother Shankara. So witness is really separate. It's not part of the experiencer. It only.
It is the only experiencer.
Oh,
We think that it's our mind stuff. We think that it's our koshas. No, that's just where the experiences are taking place. The only experiencer is Saguna Brahman, Atman, and the face of that, Atman, is the witness consciousness, the witness awareness. It's something we arrive at as we practice contemplation, concentration, and meditation. This Sunday, we'll start off with a guided meditation that, if it works for you, that is to say, if you do follow along and get the benefits of the guided meditation, you will see the identity between the shining being that we are and the experiencer.
okay, Brother Shankara. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else from anyone? As usual, Swayam asks very good questions, and it's good that we get these things straightened out. Who's doing what? We're not going to be able to understand what the Swami's about to say if we don't have this clear.
Where is the just, merciful God? Asked the philosopher. I've often asked the same question. Does he not see millions and millions of his children perish in the form of men and animals? For who can live one moment here without killing others? I've often observed that. We live in a world where animals prey on each other, and it seems so cruel. But I guess that's just Maya.
Well, that's what the Swami is saying. And he says there is no light without darkness. What seems to us evil is the necessary darkness that comes with manifestation. And so this lovely personal God who's all sweetness and light, well, you can worship that way if you like, but it makes it very difficult to deal with the hard parts of life, the hard parts that occur for you and the hard parts that occur for others. It has to be, well, it doesn't have to be, but it is most auspicious to understand that the divine has terrible forms as well as benign forms. We pray as we open these sessions for the divine presence to be with us as a mother and father, to look over us lovingly as a mother and father, to support and nourish us as a mother and father. But that's only part of this story.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
As you were answering Brahmadas's question, my mind was whirling, and I do have another question on the witness consciousness thing.
Yes.
If the witness consciousness is the only experiencer, how is the witness consciousness not affected by the experiences?
That is not the nature of the Atman, to be affected by it. Now, where does compassion come from? Compassion is part of the experiencer's being. And so I'm going to contradict myself, but it is a very fine line to think of. Sri Krishna in the Gita and Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji highly recommend compassion as a motivation for our actions, feeling for others. But they say even higher than that is leaving behind the idea of compassion and simply serving the jiva as Shiva, recognizing the divine and simply answering the call to action that is seen. So as I said, Swayam, this is so difficult to understand until one experiences it in the quiet of the practice of meditation, where you can begin to feel yourself and see yourself. I am not this person of upadhis, of descriptions. I am not a man. I am not a woman. I'm not this particular age. I'm not any of the descriptions that I could give for myself. Yes, at one level, all those things are a relative truth. But as one senses, as one practices meditation, there is something else. And that something else simply observes.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. You gave me one more thing to do more manana on, to rise above even compassion and to do in the attitude of service for Jiva Shiva. I think that has scope for taking away even any selfishness in the action.
This was exactly Sri Ramakrishna's discovery. What a fine conclusion to have come to. When Sri Ramakrishna said, "Who am I to have compassion? This is the divine I'm dealing with. So deal with the jiva as Shiva and serve in that spirit." And this you find very much emphasized in Swami Vivekananda's talks on karma yoga. Anything else, dears?
This phrase kind of, go ahead.
Sonny, go ahead.
So there's a passage by Swamiji where he says life is but momentary, and he repeats it on and on. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering what are, I forget, what are the implications of what he's talking about, I guess.
Well, Sri Ramakrishna, he takes this from Sri Ramakrishna's teaching. A human life is of only 2 days' duration. We think that 70 years or 80 years or 100 years is a long time. In eternity, it isn't even measurable. Swami Vivekananda was trying, as Sri Ramakrishna was, giving us an opportunity to see things at that higher level, and thereby not take so seriously what becomes of this action and experience suit that we're in. And that's the purpose of this suit that we're in. We can be part of action and experience that. It's an action and experience suit. That's described in the chapter in the Gita called The Field and Its Knower. So Swami Vivekananda, in saying that, is trying to give us some sense that this is not, it seems to us a long journey, this journey through this life. And in one sense, it is. But from the higher perspective that Vivekananda is speaking from when he says that, it is not. Is that sufficient, Sunny?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Brahmadas, something?
Yeah, this phrase has haunted me from previous readings of Jnana Yoga. Swami says, if the pleasure felt by animals is so much keener than that felt by man, it follows that the animal's sense of pain is as keen, if not keener, than man's.
Mm-hmm.
And, boy, I mean, I really feel bad when I see my cat playing with the critters he catches, because I know they're feeling a lot of pain. And I've seen all cats do it. Jaguars do it, leopards do it, cheetahs do it. Whoever they catch, they're feeling a lot of pain before the cat finally gives them the death bite. And I'm just not sure how to reconcile that.
Well, there is no way to reconcile it, Brahmadas. There is no way to reconcile it. You can't rationalize it. You can't make it okay.
Yeah.
It just is the way it is. This is Maya, the Swami says. And what he's trying to encourage us, before he goes on to explain what Vedanta can do for us, he's trying to get us just simply to accept that. This is the way it is. Maya is not an illusion, it's not a theory, it's a description of facts.
Right. There's the way we wish the world was, and then there's the way it really is. And Maya.
Then we have to question ourselves, why do I wish it to be that way? What is it that's unfulfilled that makes me want to wish it that way? Which we all do. I mean, I'm not pointing the finger at you in any sense. We all do it. The only answer, as it's said in the Upanishads, as it's said by Christ, as it's said by Sri Krishna, as it's said by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as it is said by Sri Ramakrishna and any number of others, the list goes on and on. The only way to make any peace with all of this is to turn within and find out who you really are in this universe of Maya. You are that which is doing this. That's one of the great sayings in the Upanishads, Tattvamasi, that thou art. So it isn't that Maya is happening to us. We are that which is making Maya. The reason this dream of life is so convincing and so compelling and so powerful is that it's your dream. because you are Brahman, you are Atman. You want this dream, and it is absolutely unanswerable as to why.
Mm-hmm.
You can say it's Brahman's dream, but that begs the question immediately, what is meant by Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, and Tattvamasi, that thou art. Anybody else? This is just exactly what we should be doing here. This is exactly, we can read text and until we're blue in the face, and until we do this kind of manana together, and get these things flat, it's probably not auspicious to go on.
Hey, so I have a question. You mentioned, meditations and kind of none of this can really fully make sense until you can experience it for yourself. And, I feel like I definitely understand that point of getting the experience and getting it through, let's just say, traditional means of meditation. But my question is, what types of meditations would you prescribe to see these truths, right?
It's not a question of my prescribing anything. The two most recent great teachers out of India, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Ramakrishna, said that for this time, chanting the name of the Lord and his/her glories or her glories is the way to turn our attention inside. So chanting a mantra that has the name that is most auspicious for your heart, and that will vary. Your heart may be drawn to Jesus, your heart may be drawn to Ramana Maharshi, for all that matter. It says in the Gita so clearly, it doesn't matter what name. The power, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, various are thy names, O Lord. In each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy. How huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. So the great teachers who have taught the path of devotion, taught this path of turning inward in this way, have taught mantra meditation as the most auspicious. And thanks for the question, because it's a very good one. What does it mean to turn inside? Find that name within yourself. Find that being. Swami Prabhavananda's first instruction for meditation was, the chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Katrina.
hi. A question. You said something about that made me think, because of the good and the not good is all Maya. And so is the goal in experiencing the Maya, the good and not good? Because like you say, we all want quote unquote good to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But are we to have this experience so that we can really then know ourselves, know our true selves? Is that why we experience the good and the not good? Because
It is especially true, Katrina, that it's why we experience the painful. Because the painful asks us or prompts us to wonder why and to seek answers.
okay.
And so, yes, experiencing the good and the not good, as you put it, are both lessons, but we learn more from our experience of the painful. We learn more readily. That's why Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, said, "You will come to see all your suffering as a blessing."
Because it leads to us to what I've heard before, the term know thyself, to know thy true self.
Exactly. Which is what happens through the practice of contemplation, concentration, and meditation. First, we contemplate what we're taught about these things. Then, having our mind come to rest on something that is most appealing and most powerful for us, we concentrate on that. And then that concentration, after a certain number of seconds, turns into real concentration. That is to say, we are with that thought and that thought alone. And then after a period of time, that concentration turns to meditation, where we are with that thought or with that being in its name or form. And then we begin to understand, oh, as Swami Prabhupada said, that chosen ideal, that being that you experience, is you yourself, no different. You learn to feel that living presence. And when that happens, then your experience of yourself and of other people and of the universe in which we live, in the particular world within universe in which we live, your experience of that changes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you're most welcome, dear, and thank you for the question.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I have another question. It may not necessarily be pertinent to the section we have been reading. Maybe it is. Should I ask now or
Go
hold off?
right ahead. Go right ahead, dear.
Okay. So this is to do with the selfishness, the small selfishness
Mm-hmm.
that is so ingrained in us, particularly before we come to this spiritual path. In all the worldliness, we may not have been overtly harmful to others, and we may even do good because it is the expected thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
The true selfishness, it is just difficult. Is it through just the process?
You just said selfishness. Do you mean selflessness or self?
No, I mean the putting the small self front and center. It's so hard to give up.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. As
How is it?
Vivekananda said, if you can do it for 5 minutes, you've triumphed. So what is the question?
The question was, how do we get there? I mean, is it just constant practice, and how do we get to the true, the selflessness now?
When you it's when you begin to sense who you truly are, then the struggle to manifest selflessness, virtuousness, harmlessness becomes less and less. The struggle becomes less. And finally, it disappears altogether. As Sri Ramakrishna said, you become as an expert singer. You cannot sing a false note. But he also says, you cannot keep your voice always on the highest note. So you will fall back, as it were. And this is why spiritual life is a moment-to-moment thing. It's not something done on a cushion at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Of course it's that, or whenever it is that you sit for contemplation, concentration, meditation, whatever form of inward turning you do. But it is something, once you've had the experience that you are not that small and grasping self, then you have to remind yourself of it. And one of the ways that Sri Krishna says, now this, as you say, we're jumping tracks in a way here. Sri Krishna describes in chapters 3 and 4 of the Gita precisely how to do it. And he says, offer everything to me. Every breath you take, every blink of your eyes, every bite you eat, every step you take, offer it all to me. And that, when you do that as a practice, day in and day out, day in and day out, more and more and more in that frame of mind, that frame of reference, you change.
Thank you.
But that's the hard way. The easy way, of course, is the bhakti way, which we just talked about this last Sunday.
All right, Brother Shankara.
Yes?
Just this question kind of relates to Swayam's question about selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there a moment when Swamiji met Rockefeller? And have you heard?
Not just a moment. He spent quite a bit of time with him, actually, over.
Does that kind of relate to the selfishness thing?
Well, Rockefeller's selfishness, not Swamiji's.
Okay.
Swamiji wanted nothing from Rockefeller. Rockefeller came to him with what his doctors told him. His doctors told him he had 14 weeks to live. He was in that dire a state. And he came to Swamiji, who was at that time, so to speak, keeping office hours in Chicago. And he came to Swamiji and he said, for those of you who don't know, Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda, same person. He came to Swamiji and said, I'm told you know how I can solve my problem. And Vivekananda said, yes. Make an arrangement by which you give all of your wealth away. Rockefeller took him seriously. I mean, you can imagine Vivekananda was a very convincing person. Rockefeller took him seriously. He went away for some weeks, I don't know, 2 weeks, a month, whatever it was. He returned and he threw this dossier of papers down on the desk in front of Swamiji and said, you should thank me. And Vivekananda slowly looked through the pages until he was satisfied he understood what it was Rockefeller had done. And he looked up and he said, "No, you should thank me." And the proof of this is that Rockefeller lived for some years after that. Not 14 weeks, but some years, and a much happier man. Because he had created the Rockefeller Foundation. And this was previously, Rockefeller was previously a man who would lose a night's sleep, not be able to sleep at night because he found out that he had paid $15 for insurance that he hadn't needed. And it would just drive him crazy. Yes, Rockefeller was one of the many people who came to Swami Vivekananda for advice. For those of you who don't know it, it's an enchanting fact that the author L. Frank Baum was in the audience on September 11th, 1893. And he and his wife and mother came every day to the Parliament of World Religions and listened to Swamiji. And later, Baum read Swamiji's book, Raja Yoga. And for those of you who don't know the name L. Frank Baum, he's the one who wrote The Wizard of Oz. And if you haven't read the book, if you've only seen the movie, I highly suggest you read the book. It's absolutely enchanting. And Dorothy is Karma Yoga. The Scarecrow is Jnana Yoga. The Tin Man is Bhakti Yoga. And the lion is Raja Yoga. The four yogas are represented by those four principal characters of The Wizard of Oz. It's a stunning book.
It is a stunning book indeed. And it's amazing how people who came into contact with the Swami, such as Tesla, their incredible achievements afterwards, it's like he had an effect on them.
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, we've just mentioned three: Rockefeller, Baum, and Tesla. Tesla was already headed that direction. I mean, there was something very special about Nikola Tesla. But Swamiji gave him a spin and an inflection, no doubt about it. Anything else? All right, we will go on now to what the Swami says about Vedanta. The Vedanta was and is the boldest system of religion. It stopped nowhere, and it had one advantage. There was no body of priests who sought to suppress every man. There was no body of priests who sought to suppress every man who tried to tell the truth. Now, of course, this is a gesture at the Catholic churches and others. It happened in Islam as well. There was no body of priests who sought to suppress every man who tried to tell the truth. There was always absolute religious freedom. In India, the bondage of superstition is a social one. Here in the West, society is very free. Social matters in India are very strict. but religious opinion is free. In England, a man may dress any way he likes or eat what he likes. No one objects. But if he misses attending church, then Mrs. Grundy is down on him. He has to conform first to what society says of religion, and then he may think of the truth. In India, on the other hand, if a man dines with one who does not belong to his own caste, down comes society with all its terrible powers and crushes him then and there. If he wants to dress a little differently from the way in which his ancestor dressed ages ago, he is done for. I have heard of a man who was cast out by society because he went several miles to see the first railway train. Well, we shall presume that this is not true. But in religion, we find atheists, materialists, and Buddhists, creeds, opinions, and speculations of every place and variety, of every phase and variety. Some of a most startling character living side by side. Preachers of all sects go about teaching and getting adherents, and at the very gates of the temples of gods, the Brahmins, to their credit, be it said, allow even the materialists to stand and give forth their opinions. Buddha died at a ripe old age. I remember a friend of mine, a great American scientist, who was fond of reading his life. He did not like the death of Buddha because he was not crucified. What a false idea. For a man to be great, he must be murdered. Such ideas never prevailed in India. This great Buddha traveled all over India, denouncing her gods and even the God of the universe, and yet he lived to a good old age. For 80 years he lived, and he had converted half the country. Then there were the Charvakas, who preached horrible things, the most rank, undisguised materialism, such as in the 19th century they dare not openly preach. These Charvakas were allowed to preach from temple to temple and city to city that religion was all nonsense, that it was priestcraft, that the Vedas were the words and writings of fools, rogues, and demons, and that there was neither God nor an eternal soul. If there was a soul, why did it not come back after death, drawn by the love of wife and child? Their idea was that if there was a soul, it must still love after death and want good things to eat and nice dress. Yet no one hurt the Charvakas. Thus, India has always had this magnificent idea of religious freedom, and you must remember that freedom is the first condition of growth. India has always had this magnificent idea of religious freedom, and you must remember that freedom is the first condition of growth. Now, questions have been asked tonight about our various limitations. We are to become free of our limitations, including the limitation of the thought of good and evil, good and not good. The only thing that Sri Ramakrishna prayed to the Holy Mother, to the Divine Mother for, to not free him from, was he could not say, here is thy truth, here is thy untruth, take them both. No, only truth. He said, truth is the austerity of the sage. But all of the rest, vice and virtue, good and evil, he said, Mother, take them both and give me pure love for thee. Now, in pure love, there's total freedom because there is no fear. No fear of anything. So freedom is the first condition of growth. What you do not make free will never grow. The idea that you can make others grow and help their growth, that you can direct and guide them, always retaining for yourself the freedom of the teacher, is nonsense, a dangerous lie which has retarded the growth of millions and millions of human beings in this world. Let men have the light of liberty. This is the only condition of growth. We in India allowed liberty in spiritual matters, and we have a tremendous spiritual power in religious thought even today. You grant the same liberty in social matters, and so have a splendid social organization. We have not given any freedom to the expansion of social matters, and ours is a cramped society. You have never given any freedom in religious matters, but with fire and sword have enforced your beliefs. And the result is that religion is a stunted, degenerated growth in the European mind. In India, we have to take off the shackles from society. In Europe, the chains must be taken from the feet of spiritual progress. Then will come a wonderful growth and the development of humankind. If we discover that there is one unity running through all these developments, spiritual, moral, and social, we should find that religion, in the finest sense, in the fullest sense of the word, must come into society and into our everyday life. In the light of Vedanta, you will understand that all sciences, are but manifestations of religion, and so is everything that exists in this world. Okay, it's just a few minutes till 9. Anything else in the way of commentary or questions from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Swami.
can you expand on that statement? I heard you say, truth is the austerity of sages.
The truth is the austerity of this age.
Oh, this age. Oh, okay.
That's what Sri Ramakrishna said. Truth is the austerity of this age. Well, it's the only one of the 4 pillars of Dharma that's left. Everything, and we see that it's under tremendous attack. You know, I mean, in academia, we find the deconstruction movement. There is no truth. There is no absolute truth. There's only opinions and this and that. In the political sphere, truth is it's almost comical how lightly it is treated. So it is indeed the austerity of this age. And the age is ending. The age of the Kali Yuga, according to Sri Ramakrishna, is ending. And all 4 pillars of Dharma will come to be prevalent again in the Golden Age, is what we're told in the Satyug. Thank you, Swayam. Anything else?
No, Brother Shankara, thank you. That's
Anything else from anyone else?
Yeah, I have a somewhat unrelated question.
Okay, Sonny.
I'm not sure if it makes sense, but I'm just wondering, how do you reconcile that many of the founders of America were deists? They didn't necessarily believe in God. And just as sort of Reformation precedes Revolution, I see similarities between kind of the American Revolution and I guess how kind of Jainism and Buddhism preceded the Upanishads in a way, and how like the founders like those like the Buddhists and Jains were atheists or deists. Um, but I wonder how that can be reconciled with, I guess, Hinduism, where there's a belief in God. Like,
Sonny, the question you've asked is worth a book. But this, first of all, we have to be a little cautious about what we say came first, because it's not absolutely certain whether the Vedas came first, and the Vedas and the Upanishads, which are part of the Vedas. And I'm not asserting that they came first. I'm just saying that certainly Buddhism came much later than the Vedas. But Jainism and all of its, we just don't know for sure. And by we, I don't mean myself. My knowledge about these things is totally borrowed. I have no scholarship in this field. So probably best, as Swami Vivekananda said, to not spend too much time speculating about these things. What deserves your attention in terms of making spiritual progress? And, if you decide as you go ahead with your education and so on that you want to tackle such big questions as the one you just asked, well, then more power to you. But if instead what you would like to do with this brief time that you have as Sunny within Maya, then it might be more advantageous to invest time in finding out who it is that is manifesting as Sunny. That's my grandfatherly advice. Anything else from anyone?
Hello, Brother Shankara, can you hear me?
Yes, I certainly can, Rishikesh.
Thank you, sir. All I can say is this comparison between the European society and the Indian society, and for that matter, any society. I think with this global world that we live in, we just have to be conscious and get the best from everyone, and live that life. I think I feel great about things that India has to offer, but at the same times I feel great about many of the things that I have experienced and learned after having migrated to US. So I feel there are many
Well,
things.
as we know, Vivekananda was a great admirer of the United States. He was a great admirer of it. His hymn to the 4th of July is very stirring indeed, which he wrote very close to the end of his life on a houseboat in the Vale of Kashmir. And he left the body quite deliberately on July 4th, 1902, in part as an homage to the United States, because he saw the possibility of true liberty and true freedom, true liberty and true freedom manifesting here. Now, of course, it's having its birth pangs, as anything important will. But yes, I agree, Rishikesh. We must take the best from what all of Maya has to offer, and then ride that like a surfer toward our spiritual unfoldment. Thank you.
Yeah, the key thing is to be conscious of that every group, every group in the society, every folks of people that we encounter, we have to be conscious of what is good in them, and then should
Yes.
not. Yeah,
If you look on my Facebook page, you'll find a poem about that very thing, that exact thought. It's titled "A Sigh, a Resolve," and my Facebook page is public, so you can.
and that is a hard thing to do. After whatever I said, it is really hard. You have to overcome that aspect, and
Yes, indeed you do.
Yeah,
it is indeed hard, but it becomes easier when you see every jiva as Shiva. Yes, Swayam.
I do not have a Facebook page, the Shankara.
You don't
Neither
have to have a Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com
Oh,
and just type in Gary Kemper,
okay. Thank you.
which is the name I go by there, my birth name. Anything else from anyone?
I have one last question. Sorry, I'm
Yes,
asking a lot
honey.
of questions.
It's quite all right.
This is my last question, promise. You said Krishna said if you wanted to do something, you had to devote things to him. If you wanted to.
No. What Sri Krishna said is, if you wish to be free from the results of action, offer it all to him. If you wanted to enjoy the fruits of that witness posture, which means that you then, the action and experience suit will experience the fruits of its karma, but you will see yourself as other than that action and experience suit. And so you will not experience the fruits of your karma. Who is you? That's the question. So
I'm kind of confused.
well, of course you are, Sonny. We're all confused. If we weren't confused, we'd be illumined. Don't feel alone. Don't feel that there's something strange or wrong. Of course you're confused. Swayam doesn't ask all these questions because she's trying to teach us something. She asks because she wants to know. Don't feel bad about being confused. Selfishness will keep you from any sort of spiritual advancement. If you are resolutely selfish, you will be in that posture that is described by Patanjali in the yamas. You will be harmful to others, yourself and others. You will be deceitful. You will be greedy. You will be all of these things. So this is why the very first teaching of Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra is the yamas, the restraints on our lower nature. And then he says, all right, having restrained yourself from that, having begun to restrain yourself, having practiced those restraints, what do you replace what you were doing previously, the thoughts you were thinking, the actions you were making, the way you were talking? What do you replace them with? And he gives us the niyamas, the observances. You can find these, there's no contradiction whatsoever between what he teaches and what's in the Gita. It's just different time, different place, different language. But Sri Krishna says, if you want to be unselfish, if you want to have the freedom of being unselfish, he says, offer everything to me. And when I said every blink of the eye, every step that you take, every bite that you eat, slowly and slowly this practice becomes something that is something you do. And it is freeing. And you spoke about confusion. Most of us live most of the time in our left mind, our mind of ideas and language. It is an exitless maze. It is the home of confusion. We are prescribed these various practices in the 4 yogas that Swami Vivekananda teaches as a way to move us out of that left mind and into our hearts, which will be what the guided meditation will be about that starts Sunday's talk.
I was going to tell Siddhant that I'm asked several of these questions over and over in different ways. And I'm chronologically at least several decades older than Siddhant, and I'm still confused.
Well, of course, we're all confused. If we weren't confused, we would be illumined. When the confusion ends, illumination begins. Nothing to be worried about or ashamed about or think there's something wrong with being confused. Maya, what? Swamiji didn't call it Tantalus's hell for nothing. It's not called Mahamaya for nothing. It's not called by Vasishta a magic show, a stage show, a mirage in the desert for nothing. So we're living as best we can and studying as best we can. And how blessed is it that we come together like this on a Wednesday evening to listen to the words of Swami Vivekananda and try to make some sense out of them for ourselves. How blessed is that? To me, it is the most blessed thing. The only thing more blessed is your own personal spiritual practice. Anything else from anyone? Okay, it's after 9 o'clock. We'll leave it at that. We'll pick it up there next week. Oh, dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om Amen. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. And we'll just close with our loving salutation. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. May you go forward in the Divine Mother's loving and protective embrace.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Brother Shankara and everybody.
Brother Shankara, good night, everybody.
Good night, dears.
Right.
And exult in being confused. Otherwise, you'd be dead. I'm serious. There's only one way. There's two ways of being out of confusion. One is the death before death, which is illumination. The other is leaving the body. So just be glad you're confused. It's an adventure. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.